Cool toned neutral eyeshadow palettes. Who am I? I love makeup, all makeup. All makeup, all makeup. But I am normally someone who goes for more warm tone eyeshadows. I like a lot of color in my shadows. When it comes to makeup, I don't discriminate. I love it all. And if you are makeup obsessed like me, you will have seen that cool tone eyeshadows are really on trend right now. We've been seeing more and more cool tone palettes pop up over the past year. Of course, cool tone neutrals are like always in style, right? They look beautiful on basically everybody, in my humble opinion. But we're really seeing a resurgence of these cool tone neutrals, like this 90s glam type of vibe, and I've been enjoying it. I'm going to show you my top 10 from my collection, and I'm telling you, I love makeup. I have a massive collection. These are the top 10 cool tone neutral palettes. We're gonna swatch them. I'm gonna show you how I got this eye look today, plus more eye looks, so definitely make sure you stick around until the end. Starting off with one of the newer palettes to my collection, this is Sigma Cool Neutrals. I've had this palette for about a month now, and I have been enjoying it so much. This is Sigma's newest launch, Cool Neutrals. I love this palette because it's not just grays. So many times people think about neutrals, cool tone neutrals, and they think taupe or gray, black, that's it. And I love that Sigma pushed things and they were like, no, we're gonna do cool tone browns. We're gonna do this cool tone murky gray purple shade, and they even brought in like a desaturated yellow shade. They give us like a cool toned pinky like dirt color. I know that sounds like it wouldn't be pretty, but it is beautiful. We also have some new formulas from Sigma in this palette, which I was so happy to see. The first time I saw this palette, I immediately asked Sigma, is this a new formula? Because I haven't touched it, but I can tell in the pan this is a new formula. I'm telling y'all, I'm in love with eyeshadows. I am constantly testing and trying new eyeshadows. So on site, I knew this was a new formula. So if you have played with Sigma in the past, there is a more sparkly, intense shimmer in this palette than what we're used to from Sigma, and I love that. I just think they created a gorgeous cool tone color story. Of course, we do have some more traditional cool tone shades when you think of that on one half of the palette, and then in the other half of the palette, we have some really beautiful, like, true neutral shades to kind of mix in and blend and give you some versatility in the palette. I really appreciate that. Again, when we're talking about cool tones today, I am talking about neutral cool tones. So these palettes are going to be like neutral at their core, but it's not just going to be gray eyeshadows, and I appreciate that. Sigma is a brand that I recommend to lots of people for eyeshadows. I find that they're a formula that's very easy to work with while still giving you pigment, blendability, different formulas, because I love options. So you have different shimmer formulas in here, the beautiful Sigma mattes that are easy to build, easy to blend, really just gorgeous all the way around. I really love this palette. As somebody who gravitates more towards warm tones, I love this cool tone palette. Natasha Denona Glam Palette. Now, Natasha Denona is one of my favorite eyeshadow brands. She makes formulas that are just special, in my opinion. In this Glam palette, first of all, I love the cover, but it does get covered in fingerprints, but that's okay. It's pretty and it does look glam, you know. Each like shade in here plays a special part, and I appreciate that. I'm somebody who loves shimmer shadows, and this palette gives me shimmer. We only have 5 matte shades in here, but I really like that in the mattes we have different depth levels. We have dark shades, light shades, and shades in between. I like that we have some like neutral brown with this, and then we have the cooler shades as well. We also have those like silvery tones. We have some lighter shades, deeper shades, and I like that Natasha Denona kind of plays with the more cooler gold shades, because when we're thinking of color, right? Even if we're thinking about greens and yellows, we can definitely look at some that lean more warm and fiery and some that lean more a little to the like blue side of the spectrum to where they're a little cooler, right? So I love that we have the variety of shades in here. Natasha Denona, this palette came out several years ago. It is not new at all. But she just makes beautiful formulas, and she gave us an array of cool tones, and I think that's why this palette has been such a success for the brand, because you can create a variety of looks even though the overall theme of the palette is cool. I love that. I'm somebody, anytime Natasha Denona puts something out, I'm gonna buy it, okay? Because I have a lot, but I need more, because more is more, right? So I'm always buying her new palettes. I have several palettes from Natasha Denona that I would say are neutral cool, but when I'm looking overall at my Natasha Denona palettes, at my whole collection, this one immediately comes to mind as a cool tone favorite. This palette from Ensley is what kind of inspired me to think about my favorite cool tone palettes. Now this video is not a ranking, it's just my top 10. All of these are a favorite, you know? So I just piled my 10 up in front of me and that's what we're talking about. They're not in an order, but this palette came into my collection last year, at the end of last year, and I just fell in love with it. It's so unique and beautiful. We have a gorgeous mix of mattes and special shades. There are multi-chromes, holochromes, shimmers in here, different textures, and I love when palettes give me more than one or two things. I can definitely get down with an all shimmer palette or an all matte palette, but I love that this palette gives me variety. We have these more like cool toned, mauve-y, dusty, rose shades. Like we have a lot of that mixed in here. We definitely have the cool tone brown shades, and then we have this like concrete color, like gray that almost has a little bit of green to it. We have those beautiful shifts. Everything about this palette is perfect. 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 I love Ensley. I think they make gorgeous shadows. As we talk through our top 10 today, some of these are going to be indie brands, meaning they're independently owned. Some of these are going to be more mainstream. I didn't think about that too much as I was putting my list together. I just wanted to pull the best of the best. Something pretty cool about this palette from Ensley is that the pans are magnetic, so I can pop them out and rearrange the palette if I want to, mix and match it with other palettes. But the formulas of every single shade are beautiful. I do have a video here on my channel creating 5 looks with this palette. So if you're looking for even more inspiration on these cool tones, definitely check that video out. I really, really love every single look I've done with this palette. And again, I mean, I love the artwork. I think it's so fun. But if you're looking for cool tones, this palette has got you. It has really got you. Adept Cosmetics is a favorite brand for me, and when I was shopping my stash, I pulled the Minka palette. This palette launched, I believe, a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago now, and it has this gold cover, but it really is more on the cool side. And opening it up, this is a palette full of special shades. Now, we do have 2 purple mattes right over here on this side, and then we have these beautiful cool tone shades all right in here. Now, I love color shadows. I love playing with blues and purples and mauve-y, pinky tones, all tones that are cool. But when I was pulling this for cool tone neutrals, I really wanted to make sure that the majority of the palette was cool tone neutral shades. They could have pops of color, but 75% of the palette for me needed to be neutral cool tones, and this definitely fits that because we have these beautiful, cool, sparkly shades. No pressed glitters, just high impact sparkle on the lid with these shades. I like using this for easy looks when I'm just kind of buffing the shades around on my eyes, letting the sparkle really come through. I also love mixing and matching this with other palettes. The formulas of the Adept are just beautiful. We do have a holochrome shade in here. It's this kind of like cool purpley pink shade that shifts to like this green, and it has a holographic sparkle to it. We have another multi-chrome here that kind of shifts from cool to warm, and beautiful, beautiful neutral shades. So even though this does have these two purple colors, the majority of the palette is cool tone neutrals. So I had to talk about this one. And Adept's a favorite brand of mine, right? Like I collabed with them on the Heather Austin palette, but their most recent collaboration, the Amy Loves Makeup Adept collaboration, I had to talk about it too. I knew this palette was coming, and I was hopeful that it would come before I had to sit down with y'all and talk about my favorite cool tone palettes, because I really wanted to include this. I knew Amy was collabing with Adept for such a long time now. I got to see this palette and swatch it, and I am so happy it is here, because it is definitely a favorite for me. A favorite brand, a friend collabing to make a cool tone palette. Amy did a beautiful job making this like a cool tone lover's dream. Yes, we do have a pop, even though this, it's kind of a neutral, right? Because it's like gray, but it's really that gray that's like carrying over into blue, but I still feel like it really pulls neutral. We have all these beautiful neutral matte shades that are so cool toned and different in their cool tone depths, like this being more brown, this being more like purple gray, this being more like gray, and then we have these beautiful cool tone neutral shades with lots of sparkle. There's a multi-chrome in here, a holochrome in here. Amy really did something special with this palette. I love Amy, I love Adept, and I love the quality of the shadows. Adept mattes are very pigmented but easy to blend. You can layer them, which is really important to me. The shimmers are out of this world, and we have a lot of different formulas in this palette. Like I said, not just the multi-chrome, not just the holochrome, but we have this like duochrome shade over here. We have these shades here that have a lot of intense sparkle to them. We have some more smooth, sparkly shimmers. Just instant favorite. And the cover, I can do like this and not get glitter on my hands. I love that. Let's talk about Makeup by Mario, the Master Mattes, the neutrals. I was so curious. I had to buy this palette from Makeup by Mario, and as I was buying this, part of me was thinking, is this boring? But I was too curious. So you know me, I'm like, add to cart, let me try it, let me see for myself. Because I know if I'm curious, maybe y'all are curious too, and that's why I'm here, to help you out, let you know if something's good. And the quality of this palette is beautiful. These mattes blend like a dream. They are pigmented but not intensely so you can go in with your shadow and you're not going to be overwhelmed. If you wanted something light, you can definitely start light, and then you can go in and add more if you want more depth, and it's not hard to build these shadows up at all. They're very buttery, and I know that is a word that maybe we overuse sometimes talking about makeup, but they really have this creamy, silky feel to them, so that they glide on like butter over toast, baby. You know, smooth, just glide. There's no stick anywhere. They're not hard to blend, not patchy, nothing like that. And while I love using this to create that 90s glam supermodel off-duty type of look, all matte can definitely do that with this palette, because everything just blends easily. And I like that it's not just black and gray and white. You know, I know that is the go-to thought with cool tones, but we have the brown tones in here. We have some true neutrals. These shades I would say are true neutrals, and then we do have our more cool leaning shades as well. So I really appreciate this palette, and while I can create an all matte look, I wanted to kind of give like a bonus in this video, because typically when I use that Makeup by Mario palette, I'm not creating just all matte looks, I'm pulling in shimmer and sparkle. So I did decide to kind of give myself a little bonus in this video and pull 10 single shadows that are in the neutrally cool tone vibe, because I love that Makeup by Mario palette. I think the quality is so great, but I typically mix and match it with my single shadows. So I wanted to pull in some single shadows. I have some from Oden's Eye, Clionadh, BellaBeauteBar, and Ensley Rain, all indie brands, but I want to share these with y'all in case you're like, you know, I have neutral mattes, I have cool tone mattes, but I really want to add in some sparkle, some shimmer, and some fun cool tones. I've got you. Listen, I'm here with the recommendations. I have got you. Adding these to any of your mattes, using these as a one and done shadow, it can be so fun, so beautiful, so impactful. And I just thought bringing in the singles would be a little fun. I could talk more about makeup, which I love to do. I always want to talk about makeup, and these shades are just absolutely freaking gorgeous. I picked some variety when I was pulling this together. Like, I just wanted to pull the really, really good shadows. If you're somebody who doesn't know if you like cool tones, they're a little out of your comfort zone, but you want to try them, I today am wearing the GlamLite Ghost Face Lives palette. I will admit, no matter what this palette looked like on the inside, I was gonna buy it because I love Scream so much. It's a comfort movie for me and my kid. We love the Scream franchise, but GlamLite did send me this Scream collection. Now, some of the palettes I'm talking about were sent to me. Some of them I purchased myself, the same with the singles, but I will list everything I talk about down in the description box, any affiliate codes, anything like that, it'll all be there. And I was so happy when I saw this palette on the inside, because I'm like, if it was a palette full of matte white eyeshadow, I would have bought it anyways because I'm a fan. But let me tell you, even if you're not a fan, the quality of this palette is so incredibly gorgeous. Look at these cool tones. Look at these cool tones. Now you may be thinking, that's a lot of gray. But what GlamLite did is something really special with these grays, because we have shades in here that are gray that shift to a green when the light catches them just right, and they have a little bit of like green purple sparkle. We have grays and silvers that shift to blue purple when the light hits it, and it has different color reflex in there. We have more taupey grays, we have more brown grays. Even in the matte selection, we definitely have some that lean more brown, some that lean more purple, some that lean more blue navy, and I think that is really special. Like I said, to intrigue me, I really appreciate when a palette plays around with undertones to the cool tones. So yes, we're looking at all cool tones, but in those cool tones, we're having gray, blue, brown, green, purple, like even some pinky shades, like just very interesting, very unique. I really, really love this palette. Every time I pick it up, I think it is beautiful and I enjoy the looks I create with it. GlamLite has such a good formula, and it's one of the reasons I say if you've never tried cool tones, maybe you're hesitant, but you really want to like play around with this trend, see if it's something that you could like. This palette from GlamLite you can get for like $21 after you use a code. Like, they have such a good price point, and I did not pick them because the price point is lower. Like I said, I just shopped my collection pulling the best. I didn't think, oh no, I have to have one that's, you know, luxury. I have to have one that's drugstore price. Like, no, I wanted to pull the best stuff. And GlamLite is at such a good price point, and they are some of the best shadows in this ghost face. They definitely have like several different formulas across their palettes, and I think this one from Ghost Face is really amazing. I mean, I'm wearing it today and I am loving my look. I have another little bonus here because I pulled all the palettes. I was like looking through, getting my swatches, everything for y'all, and I went to link this palette because I always like to list out and link everything I talk about for y'all, because I like to know, like I'm a YouTube watcher. I'm always watching YouTube and I'm always like, okay, where can I buy that? So I was looking for a link and I don't think they have this Hershey palette anymore. But if you have the Hershey Cookie and Cream palette, pull it out because it is beautiful. It has those cool tones. It has some blue gray shades. It even has that little bit of yellow that's on the more cool side. Really, really beautiful. I'm not sure if GlamLite is ever going to restock this palette, so I decided not to include it in the top 10. There were a couple of palettes that were discontinued that I'm like, I love you, Melt Mary Jane, but I'm not going to just like make this a video on discontinued palettes, you know? Fantasy Cosmetica Fighter palette. This is beautiful, and this is really a different palette from the brand. Honestly, they do a lot of colorful things, really beautiful, but this Fighter palette is their cool tone neutral, and I'm here for it. It is beautiful, beautiful, cool neutral shades, all of these neutral leaning, but we do have some multi-chromes in here. So while you may look at this and think, oh, that's a silvery gray sparkle, when it shifts, it turns to this cool tone purpley blue shade. So we get the neutral while also getting some color. I really like that they popped in this more like a desaturated red and bronze shade to give some versatility to the palette. But overall, we're very cool neutral leaning. Even this yellow being very desaturated kind of goes with those cool tones. It's a little more like stone, rock, earthy, very reminiscent of like the Sigma Cool Neutrals palette. Here, let me hold this one up again. Like, we can definitely see like the same type of color story, of course, cool neutrals, but I like that we have grays and browns in here. I like that this shade right here, this purple, depending on how you're holding it, the reflex and the shimmer are going to pick up different, and it's almost going to look like this kind of murky brown with the purple undertone, and then in other lights it's going to look straight up purple. Fantasy Cosmetica, I really love their 9-pan palettes. They do these 9-pans so beautifully. They give them a mixture of like mattes and like duochrome, multi-chrome shimmer shades. So if you want like a more curated palette, maybe one that's not so many shades, this one is beautiful. And this is another one that I immediately thought of when I was thinking cool tone neutrals, because to me this was such a surprise from the brand and I really enjoyed creating with it. I think it's really, really pretty, and if you want to try cool tones, definitely check this one out, definitely. But also shop your stash, you know, like I would love to know, since we're talking about palettes, if there's a palette that you're like, Heather, I can't believe you don't have this palette, please put me on. Tell me in the comments what cool tone neutral palette I need to be trying. And also let me know, do you want me to keep doing these types of videos? Because I did do a top 10 green eyeshadow palettes video in March. So I would love to continue this if y'all are into it. Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse. I love Lunar Beauty. I remember buying this palette thinking, wow, that is gorgeous cover. Of course, Lunar Beauty always kills it with the artwork, but also the inside of the palette is such a beautiful neutral color story that's very cool toned, having a little bit of that pop of color, a couple of warm shades, but overall very, very cool. I love that we get not just grays and silvers, although we do have those. This is such a bright, beautiful, sparkly silver. This shade right here is like this deep slate shimmer color that has this like iridescent rainbowy sparkle in it. I don't know, it's really cool and beautiful. We do have these blue tones. I love that we have this black matte shade with the sparkle in it. That makes it very easy to blend, or you can pack it on to really like see that sparkle in the matte. I also like that we do have this deep dark gray shimmer down here with the matte, and then we have these really neutral brown leaning cool tones with a couple of like more neutral to warm leaning mattes in here as well. This palette, to me, you can get a variety of looks out of. You can do something very light if you want to. If you want to just stick right in here with these shades, you can create something light and bright but still cool toned, or you can take it deep and dark and you can do that neutral look with a pop of blue that is really, really beautiful. There's a reason so many brands do a neutral palette with one blue, because browns, grays pair beautifully with blue, and it's such a gorgeous like color combo. So you could definitely get all of that from this palette. I like that we have this like more cool leaning bronze gold, this like desaturated type of color. Really, really beautiful. I like Lunar Beauty so much. This again is an old palette. Like, when did this palette come out? Years and years and years ago. But it's so good. It's so good. It's been around for years and it's still a favorite. Last but not least is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Rose Metals palette. This is a limited edition palette, but I'm glad that they have kept it around for a while. I can really, really appreciate that. This palette, again, you do have the mix of cool with a few warm shades in here, with a few like pops of color, kind of. This right here, I would say is a pop of color. It's kind of this like plum that can be bright when the light picks up the shimmer reflex. Like as you're moving about your day, you're going inside, you're going outside, the sunlight, the lighting is hitting you, changing, like you can kind of see that neutrally reflect, that plum reflect in here. I love that we have this super sparkly, like, I don't know, like wet cement type of color. I know there are probably more beautiful words I could use, but you know, what am I gonna do? Like that's just what comes to mind, wet cement, and it's beautiful. We have this very like cool toned lilac-y pink shade with this more bright silvery star color. I don't know, it's so fun. We have these like neutrally browns over here that lean a little more to the cool side. I think that acts as like some versatility to the palette. We do have these shades right here. Well, this shade, and this shade that I would kind of classify as more warm, but overall the palette is very cool toned, and I think having just a few warm shades in there make the palette overall more versatile, because you're going to mainly create cool looks with this palette. And I know that in the campaign photos they were definitely going for that like supermodel grunge-esque type of look, but glam. Not grunge, but like what if grunge was glam type of vibe, you know, like inspiration. Sometimes things don't have to be like a literal translation of what you're inspired by. You can just be inspired by bits and pieces, the vibe, you know? And I see that with this palette, but I think having the few warm tones in here allow you to kind of mix it up and make the palette a lot more versatile on the whole, because if you want to do a warm look, you have the shades, but overall it's a very cool vibe. And I really like this packaging too. I think Anastasia, when they started making their palettes here in the past few years that are kind of in this format, they definitely like took it from this level to the next level, because you know this wasn't the level, the next level is the level, and I was so happy to see them like level up their eyeshadow game. As I said before, I am makeup obsessed. Makeup, 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 makeup. It is my happy place. It's not what I use to make myself look better. It's what I use to have fun, to create just a little me time in my day. And I love talking to you about makeup. So don't leave. If you love talking about makeup as much as I do, I have so many videos for you. So many videos. And if eyeshadows are like not your main thing, I've got tons of complexion videos. Definitely check some out. Hang out with me. Please do subscribe, because I upload new makeup videos every single week, y'all.